because as you can see, I have, let me just minimize this. I have Windows virtual machine running within Linux, and in behind I have my Red Hat website opened. There we will download Red Hat in the follow-up tutorial, but for the time being I just want to show you that this is a virtual machine, and you can see it runs just fine. You have this gray menu bar in the upper part of your screen, but I mean that's easily fixable. Switch to full screen. Yep, there we go. Switch, there we go. So it seems as though I really do have a Windows machine, but in fact this is a virtual machine, and for all intents and purposes this pretty much works. So if I go down, I have these things here. I have my menu back up, but I don't need my menu for the time being. I just want to show you how you can do pretty much the same thing for Red Hat as I have done for Windows 8.1. Now there are other methods of virtualization. There are other approaches to do this. I will show 3 if I'm not mistaken, or a couple, don't hold my word to it, where you will be able to do different things. For example, you will be able to virtualize your Red Hat machine within a Windows environment. You will be able to perform a dual boot of your Windows and Red Hat as well, or any other Linux distro. And the third option, you will be able to have your main machine to be a Linux-based operating system, preferably Red Hat, but it can be pretty much anything else. And you will install a virtualizer on that particular machine, from where you will have access to your Windows 8 Windows machine should you need it. Now there are different approaches to this last part. You can have a simple virtualizer like VirtualBox and pretty much run, but I think that's 50% at capacity. If you install a Xen virtualizer, you have 95% native performance, which is fantastic, which means that you really can play games and use Photoshop or do anything of a kind, perform such tasks. So you can literally run a game, a video game, I don't know, let's say Call of Duty or something like that, with with 95% native performance on Xen virtual machine of Windows, and it's gonna work just fine, provided of course that you have configured everything properly on your main Linux machine. Anyway, let's take this first approach, and before I do, let me just mention it briefly. Any one of these approaches that you take, you will be able to follow through the tutorial. So just take a look. I will show 3 for different cases. Any one you choose to set up, any of the 3 that you actually choose and set up, it will be fine. You will be able to follow through the entire tutorial without any problems of whatsoever. So there, you won't be hindered whichever one you choose. I just set it for personal preferences, whichever way people want it to be. Anyway, let's just jump into Windows now. I'm here. I'm gonna open up a default web browser, which is basically Explorer here. It says I've written in VirtualBox 32-bit. Be careful to actually download a proper one, although you can't really make a mistake, because if you search the web for VirtualBox 32-bit, you're going to be thrown onto a Oracle website. It won't be VirtualBox official website, but it will be like Oracle, its maintainer and creator, and you can download it from there, no problem. So if you go to the Oracle website, here, let me just show you. I'm gonna do a web search, and pretty much the second one that pops, that will be a place where you can go and download it. There we go. So once again, I found myself on that website. As you can see, you have VirtualBox for numerous operating systems down there. Most of them are Linux platforms. Different Linux platforms require different modifications in order for this virtualizer to be able to run. So you got here, it says platform Windows 32-bit, 64-bit, no problems. I just click on this and it's gonna start to download. As you can see at the bottom of my screen, it says VirtualBox 4326 something win.exe download complete. So I'm not going to be downloading it during this tutorial, but you just click on this, click on the selected part, and your download will begin no matter which browser you are using. It took me about maybe 4 or 5 minutes to download it. I figured I wouldn't do that during the tutorial itself. So let's just go ahead and minimize this, please. Yes. No. The Explorer is always wonderful. I really should install Firefox or something like that, but it's a virtual machine, so I don't give it that much attention. Anyway, go ahead, visit your downloads folder. Let's see, where is it? There we go. So VirtualBox 4.3, there we go. Nope, which is the latest version? Yep, the lower one. Also, yeah, make it your business to actually have always the latest versions of the software. That can save you so much trouble. I mean, I can't even begin to explain it. So it's an exe file. Just start up the wizard. No big deal. And okay, so the wizard has been started. It says Oracle VMbox 4.3.26 setup, welcome, etc. Just click next. That's no big deal there. So you have some sort of a custom, pretty much like any other installation. If you want to play around with it, feel free, but I'm not. I'm just gonna use a default install here. So create, register. Okay, no problems. Next. Installing virtual network config. Yep. Okay. So if you're performing a download of some sort while you're installing VirtualBox, make sure that you can continue them, or that you at least don't care for them, primarily because your network interfaces are going to be reset. So just type in click yes, install, and okay, you need a permission there. Excellent. So the installation process is en route. This is not going to take that long of a time, and in that period of time I'll see if I can actually minimize Windows Explorer. Can I? Yes, I can, through a very inefficient method, but oh well. Anyway, the installation procedure is going on, and even though I'm running this on a virtual machine, there is no difference. No, I don't want you to start it. There is no difference. You will be doing exactly the same steps on your physical Windows machine if you are a Windows user. Straight away, I will of course demonstrate how to perform this process on Linux as well, so don't worry about it. If you have already installed a Linux version or using a Linux machine, I will show you how to do it. So basically, just go ahead and click on Oracle VirtualBox. Should run anytime, and excellent. This is your Oracle VirtualBox interface. There is, from this point on, there pretty much are no differences between virtual machines, between Linux and Windows. Pretty much the procedures are the same. There isn't anything special that you're going to do here that you're not going to do there. Basically, just download an ISO file from the net and then install it. I will perform the installation procedure in the next tutorial and explain a few features to which you should really pay attention here. Actually, I might just mention a few of them. So let me just go ahead and do this, because I already have a few virtual machines installed here. So what I've noticed over the course of time is that people get confused with certain things. So look, I have Windows 8.1. It says running. I select it, I right click it, I say settings, and starting. Yep, there we go. So there are a few things here which you should be aware. For example, on network, you need to say that it's a bridged adapter. So remember, select bridged adapter, and then under the name, you select the name of the interface, of the network interface that your physical machine is using. I cannot tell you which interface that is, because I don't know, machines use different interfaces from one machine to the other, but I can definitely show you where you can find out. You just go back to your, I'm just going to go back to my machine, open up your, okay, I'm not going to be able to show you here, but hold on, come on, please, no, yes, thank you, search, control panel, open it up, so network and internet, adapters. I need adapters. Network sharing center. Okay, there we go. So this here. This is these are your adapters, and you just take a look at these adapters here. If you're using a Windows physical machine, you take a look at these adapters here, and then you just open up your network manager, and you see network 3 connected, Ethernet network 3. So this is the adapter that you are using, and this is what you will select in your virtual box when you perform an installation on your main machine. This is how you would perform the checkup procedure in Windows to see which network adapter you are using in order to select it in VirtualBox right here. So there we go. Okay, I know it might seem a bit confusing because I'm jumping from one system to another now, but don't worry about it. I have simply performed this to show you where you can find a VirtualBox, a virtualizer on Windows, where you can download it for free. And from that point on, it gets really simple. You just install the system there, install an operating system there, download it first, and that is it. No difference. I'll be showing some of the things in Linux, how to do it. I'll be showing pretty much the same things in Windows, but you will see that the differences are pretty much trivial. In any case, I would like to bid you all farewell till next time. Next time we will download Red Hat and perform an actual installation on a virtual box. So that will be one of the approaches that we're going to take to virtualize the environment of Red Hat, and then after that I'll show you how to perform a dual boot between Windows 8.1 and Linux. Welcome all to this tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to and where to download Red Hat and how can you install it on VirtualBox. Now, even though I know I've said that this is going to be done in Windows 8.1, and here I have indeed showed you how to actually install VirtualBox in Windows 8.1. Now, I mainly want to show you how to use VirtualBox and how to actually install an operating system here in your virtualized environment. It does not matter if you are using Mac, Linux, BSD, Windows, and pretty much whatever else is out there that is supported by VirtualBox or that supports VirtualBox. The interface is the same. There are minor trivial differences which basically do not matter at all. I can't imagine why they would. So I'm just going to use a VirtualBox on my physical machine, which is Fedora, but the interface is exactly the same. I could obviously do it here in a virtual machine, but to install a virtual machine within a virtual machine, yeah, I would need I basically could do it, but it would completely eat up my RAM. If you just take a look at this, where is it? Over here, this is the current load of my system. So it's a bit ridiculous, right? So the 4 cores of the processor. Look at the load. I mean, there it's like 39, 41, 48, 45, something like that. And look at the RAM usage. I have around 8 gigs of RAM. Out of those 8 gigs, I'm using 6. So many things running on my computer at the moment. So I'm just going to use a VirtualBox, which is here on my Linux system that I'm spinning around the screen now. But the procedure is exactly the same. I mean, just take a look at this one. It says Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. And now take a look at this one in Windows. They are exactly the same. Maybe there are some design differences at the corners and a bit of difference in terms of colors, but that's about it. There's pretty much no difference in terms of functionality or what you do here. Anyway, what do I have? I have Red Hat here running. Okay, we're not going to need that. Power off the machine. And I'm going to delete this one, delete all files, just so that I can repeat the installation procedure for you. I did go through it once. I mean, I have went through CentOS once and everything like that. I like to go through them before I actually begin the tutorial, just because sometimes you encounter problems, flaws, and if I do encounter them, I like to report them during the tutorials and show people how to resolve them in advance, just in case they encounter them. Anyway, let's just move that out of the way. So you just open up your browser on whatever operating system you are using, and if you're using Windows, it doesn't matter, just open up your browser as I have opened it now. go ahead and type in to your search engine, I don't know, like Red Hat. Amazing. Red Hat. Okay, Red Hat, the world's open source leader. This is their website, and here you would log in. So you do need to create an account in order to do this. Creating an account on Red Hat is absolutely free, and once you actually create an account there, head over to this link, but you can navigate on the page without problems, but I'm just going to give you a link as the worst case scenario, I guess. Let me just zoom it in. So it's here, basically, in the download section. It's not that hard to find. There are a lot of Linux distros out there. There are a lot of different versions of Red Hat, depending for what purpose are you downloading. And Red Hat, even though it is open source, it is not free. That something is open source does not necessarily have to mean that it's free of charge. Although Red Hat itself is an operating system, they don't actually charge for that. Rather, instead, they charge for the support. So if you want to access the repositories from which you can download software and updates and so on and so forth, you will need to pay a yearly fee. Now the good news is that the yearly fee is like $50 for regular users. For companies or something like that, it can go up to 3K or something of a kind. But hey, you are a regular user, so it's only 50 bucks. And if you don't want to pay for those, even if you don't want to pay 50 bucks or something like that for for the support or something of a kind, it's fine. There is something called CentOS on my other page. Well, just here. Just type into your search engine CentOS. I'm using Firefox here, but doesn't really matter. Whichever operating system, whichever browser. CentOS, go and visit their page. I'm just going to close this one because I have another one opened. And there you go. CentOS is pretty much a copy of Red Hat. Red Hat does not have a problem with that. Just a heads up info or something of a kind. Red Hat does not have a problem with CentOS. In fact, they cooperate on a lot of things. Here's why. CentOS doesn't actually charge for anything. It's completely free. It's open source. You can download it for free without any sort of registration required, and it gives the users a chance to see what Red Hat can be really like. Furthermore, one of the fundamental differences between CentOS and Red Hat is the support. Pretty much everything else is more or less the same. So you can download it, and you should be able to follow through the tutorial without any bigger difficulties of whatsoever, as things will be pretty much the same. If you do encounter into some problems, please do let me know. I will be more than happy to jump in and help you out. Now, there are a few things that you should pay attention here when downloading CentOS. Make sure that you know whether your system is a 32-bit or a 64-bit operating system. If it's 64-bit, it won't matter. You will be able to run 32-bit images and 64-bit images without any problems. However, if it is a 32-bit system, then you will not be able to run 64-bit images. And I have made a bit of a spin here with words, but I think you get the meaning. Make sure that you know whether it's 32-bit or 64-bit. Anyway, so you have a DVD ISO, everything ISO, minimal ISO. You can certainly choose one of these three, but what I would recommend if you're going to download CentOS, just to go, if this is not for you, alternative downloads might be. So just go ahead and click here. This will give you a choice. So you have CentOS 7 and the version of the 7, and you have it only for 64-bit systems, if I'm not mistaken. And down below you have CentOS 6 if you're using a 32-bit system. Just go ahead and download this one where it says i386. Just in case you are using a 32-bit system, please keep in mind a lot of people make this mistake and then they can't install it in the VirtualBox. They get a lot of errors. They can't figure out what is wrong, but eventually they do, and it's not a major obstacle, I would say, but it certainly does cause a loss of time. Just a bit of attention and you can save yourselves a lot of trouble. Now I won't be showing the installation for CentOS, but it's almost exactly the same, if not exactly the same. Red Hat, CentOS, and Fedora, they're pretty much the same, so no problems there. Fedora is just a open source free distro maintained by Red Hat that is for desktop users. It's very nice. That is the one that I like to use as my desktop machine. Well, not my desktop machine, I run it on my laptop, and it has served me extremely well. Anyway, we are now on Red Hat's website. I have logged into my account. Sorry for that. And I am here at the downloads page, download a product. So it says Red Hat Enterprise Linux Desktop. That is the one that you will need. And it says 7.1 latest. Excellent. 64-bit architecture. Prior to this, you are gonna have a downloads page and stuff of a kind. Browse the site, see what suits you. But this is the one that I have chosen to download. If you want another version of it, just go to the download section on the site. As soon as you log in, you will be as soon as you create the actual account, which is fairly simple to do, you will be given an option to actually go to the download section, and there you can pretty much choose whatever you want. I have chosen to download Red Hat Enterprise Linux for desktops. I know it says that it's not that it's perhaps not the best for servers or something like that, but believe me, you can install packages, you can configure it, and it can run as a fantastic server. And besides, it has pretty much all the functionalities as the other ones do. However, you do need to bother with the installation of extra packages, configuration, and addition of stuff, as opposed to some other variations where you don't need to do this. And for example, Red Hat server or something of a kind, it would support file sizes up to a petabyte or something of a kind, which is humongous. You're definitely not going to need that realistically ever. I mean, unless you work in a large company or something of a kind, and then they have these products. But the management, the commands, the setup, everything is pretty much the same. There's very little difference. So go ahead and select Red Hat 7.1 binary DVD download. You don't need the supplementary DVD. Just go ahead and download the binary DVD, the middle one. Click on the download and it's going to download for you. It's 3.57 gigabytes. So it might take a while for you to download. I'm not going to download it now, but I have downloaded it previously. You can see it here. I have actually downloaded it twice because the first download was incorrect. Didn't really work out, so I just downloaded it again, which was really a painful experience, as it is a rather large file, and I don't have a really fast that fast of an internet connection here. It's like 5 megabits, so that was kind of painful, but okay. Anyway, feel free to pause the tutorial here and then continue on when the download is done, because you're going to need this file in order to proceed. Anyway, let's just go ahead and start up our VirtualBox so that we may actually begin the installation process. Anyway, as I have said, okay, so where is it? As I have said, I'm only showing you the application here, and the usage of this application is exactly the same across all supported platforms pretty much. So on Windows, Linux, Mac, whatever, the setup is pretty much the same. There is nothing fundamentally different that you need to do in order to perform the setup there. The installation process is different on different platforms, but the application itself, the software, it's not. It's pretty much the same. It displays the same sort of information. The process is exactly the same, so no worries there. Okay, so let's go and actually create our Red Hat machine. I'm gonna go ahead and let's just minimize this, shall we? And I don't really need this. I like to keep this this part open so I know what is going on in the background. Well, maybe not in the background, but I know the load on my system. I know that there are utilities that you can put on the side that can be really useful, but for the time being, I'm just gonna leave it as it is so I can monitor the usage. You can see this is ridiculous. It gets up to 90% in all 4 cores. That's a joy. Anyway, even though it's an i7 processor, yeah. Anyway, let's just go ahead and click on New. select the name of our virtual machine. What shall it be? Let's call it Red Hat. You see it says type Linux. Okay, so it recognized that by default. And it also said that the version Red Hat 64-bit. Make sure that you select the proper version for yourself, either 32-bit or 64-bit, depending on what you have downloaded and depending on what your system supports. So please be aware of that. Don't make that mistake. Anyway, it's 64-bit for me, so go ahead and click on next. I would recommend giving it around, I'm going to give it around 1.2 gigs of RAM. Okay, so I know that on the net, the information exists, and this is really true, that Linux systems can run on 56 megabytes of RAM. So 56 megabytes of RAM is actually doable on a Linux system. You can actually run it, which is hilarious. I know, right? 56 megabytes, but that's not really a recommended thing. Depending on what you're going to do, that is the amount of RAM that you're going to require. But if you have RAM to spare, I would recommend giving it 1.2 for smooth operations. However, you can also give it 750 megabytes, and you can even go down to, I think, 250 megabytes, but you shouldn't really go lower than 750 if you don't absolutely need to, primarily because you might experience some lag. Let's put it so. It's gonna work. It's gonna work, that's for sure. It's gonna function, but you might experience some lag during your operations. But anyway, assign either 1.2 gigs or whatever else you can spare that is below 1.2 gigs for this purpose. However, as I said, I will show 3 separate methods of how you can do this, how you can actually run Red Hat parallel to your Windows machine. You can choose either 3 of them, see what works out for you. If you see one and if you perform that setup and if you like it, you can just take a look at the other 2 so you can see what else is possible, but you don't necessarily need to do all 3 of them. Anyway, so it's 1.2. Let's see if we can aim it a little bit better. 1.23. Okay, so let's go next. Create a virtual hard drive now. Create VDI hard drive file type. Okay, next, dynamically allocated. Next, and now we need to provide storage. Okay, this is getting a little bit annoying, so I'm gonna move it out of the way. But okay, so there we go. Here I have my temperature gadget. I like to keep an eye on that as well, primarily because you've seen the load on my CPU and all of that. It's a good idea to keep an eye on these things. Anyway, let's just assign it around, I'm gonna give it 32 gigabytes of space on my hard drive, and that's gonna be, well, acceptable, but you can assign it whatever you can spare. I mean, okay, so maybe I can give it 128 gigabytes, but that's not really going to make a difference. I'm just doing it to show you basically what you can do. I have a lot of space here. I can use it. I can use a lot. Anyway, go ahead and click on create, but if you don't have, assign whatever you can spare. 32 gigs would be very nice. Anyway, now you need to go ahead and right click, settings, system, oh sorry, not system, storage. You have controller IDE, and down below it says empty. Go ahead and click on empty. In the upper right corner you have choose virtual CD DVD disk or a physical drive. So you can actually insert a CD, a pre-burned CD, into your machine and then use that one, but why bother when you have an ISO image ready standing by? So just click on choose a virtual CD drive, and it doesn't matter on what system you are. Again, so just go ahead and double click on your Red Hat icon or your Red Hat machine that you have created. There we go, we get prompted immediately. Just go ahead and select install Red Hat Enterprise Linux, press enter, and there we go. The installation should start shortly. Don't worry about this failure. It should begin loading soon, hopefully. I am not going to be forced to eat my own words. Please, I'm begging you. There we go. It's working out, so it's relatively slow, but oh well. There's a lot to load. Anyway, keynote here. The screen will be small until we actually finish the installation itself. It will get a bit bigger during the installation process itself, but there we go. But until we actually install VirtualBox Guest Editions, we're not going to have the functionality of a full screen mode. I will show you how to do this, of course, and the process is not different whether you are doing this on Windows, Linux, or Mac. You are doing exactly the same things. Also, if you are installing CentOS, again, little or no difference. Some trivial, insignificant things that you probably won't even notice are there. You're not going to have, for example, this red Red Hat icon in the upper left corner. Okay, so go ahead and select the language of your preference. Oh, by the way, since the guest editions are not yet installed, you're going to have to capture your devices. By that I mean your mouse and your keyboard, and you see you won't be able to escape the virtual machine box, and if you press right control, you will be able to escape it. When you press right control again, it will capture and you will be confined to the size of the screen. Anyway, go ahead and select your language preferences. Click on continue. I think that your keyboard should be set by default when you select the language preferences, and there we go. That is done. Go ahead and select the time zone that you wish. Just go ahead and click into any place where you are at the moment, what you have selected. I'm just going to leave it as it is. That does not matter for me at the time, but for you it might, so make sure to correct it to the correct time zone if you wish to get accurate time. It says language is set, software selection. Okay, so let's go into software selection. Oops, sorry. And let's see what we are going to install. Now, what I have on my physical machine here is a KDE Plasma workspace, but I'm going to go ahead and install GNOME Desktop here. Why, if you ask? Why do you ask? Well, I want to show you that there are different sorts of desktop here, and I can show you one type of desktop on my physical machine, and I can show you a different type of desktop on the Red Hat machine. Just so that you know that there are differences, and you will see that the differences are significant. Okay, so what do we want? We want internet applications, conferencing such. Sure, why not? A set of commonly used, sure, why not? Client for doing backup, clients for connecting to a backup server and doing backups. No, we do not need that at the moment. If we do, we can install it easily. Legacy X Windows system compatibility. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and select this as well, primarily because I might need it later on and I don't want to bother with dependencies, but generally you won't need it. Okay, so this is definitely a choice that you should take, Office Suite and Productivity. Smart card support, well, I don't know, if you need it, use it. If not, oh well. You can keep in mind that all of these things, including the desktops themselves, you can install and delete later on as you choose after the installation. This is not a Windows operating system. You can actually delete the current desktop, delete the current graphical user interface, and install a new one that is more to your liking. Okay, so smart card compatibility libraries. Okay, this is not a bad idea. Integrating trust. Okay, yeah, there we go. Let's just go ahead and click on Plasma Workspace to see what is offered here. So you see you have perhaps, actually no, it's pretty much the same things. Sometimes on KDE you have a bit more things that they offer, but this is not the case here. Anyway, there are other desktop environments other than GNOME and KDE. Again, you can delete either one of these upon installation and then install whatever you want, like LXD or KDE, not KDE, sorry, XFC or something of a kind, whatever suits your needs. Well, let's just say software selection is done. Checking for software dependencies. This might take a while. And now we have installation source. It's checking for software dependencies. Excellent. It has found both. We don't need the additional CD. If you selected perhaps some other options, perhaps you would need it, but not in this particular case. It says installation destination, automatic partitioning selected. Okay, let's go let's go into installation destination and the partitioning schemes. Keep in mind that you can create multiple disks in VirtualBox, as many as you like, or as many as your hardware can support. So we're going to be playing around with that later on, and we're going to be creating new partitions on new drives. But for the time being, I'm just going to go ahead and select the default installation, primarily because there isn't really a need to play around here any further. I will teach you how to partition disks, how to format them, and how to configure them to pretty much any setup you want. For the time being, uh, you can just select the automatic configuration and that will do the trick. You can also, what I generally recommend is set the encryption immediately here so you don't have to bother with it later on. So I'm just going to go ahead and say encrypt my data. You can, if you can put some simple, you can put the simplest of passwords there if you don't care about it, but have it there. It's not a bad layer of security to have. It's actually pretty good, especially when you lose something, or when you, especially on laptops. If you lose a laptop, if the data is encrypted on it, nobody's going to be able to access it. Don't worry about it. This is just to save you a bit of time later on, but primarily what people tend to do is encrypt individual files where they have certain things that are stored. Okay, let's go ahead and click on full disk summary and bootloader, so you can see that everything here is on a single disk. It's SDA, and okay, so yeah, this is probably not the best thing to do, but as I said, later on when the installation is done, I will show you in detail how you can partition, how you can create new partitions, delete old ones, or change the existing ones. Anyway, for the time being, just go ahead and click done. Disk encryption passphrase, I will type in test, but you can type in whatever you want. Make sure, and I can't emphasize this enough, make sure that you do not forget your encryption passphrase. If you do forget it, you can say goodbye to your data, quite literally. I'm not kidding. If you lose your encryption keys, it's gone. You won't be able to recover it. There are some brute forcing methods out there and something of a kind, but if you have a complex encryption key that you have forgotten, chances are that you will not be able to recover the information that you have there at all. You will of course be able to reformat the drive and create and free up the space, but you will not be able to retrieve the information. So keep in mind, it is very important that you remember this. Save passphrase, installation destination, saving configuration. It says network and hostname, so let's just go ahead and see what we can do about that. We need to say that this is on. Okay, so IP address, subnet mask, default route, DNS. Excellent. So this is done as well. Oh, by the way, you can see that I have configured my router to the OpenDNS servers. We can talk about DNS a bit later on. For the time being, I just wanted to mention it. So kdump is a kernel crashing dumping mechanism in the event of a system crash. That is all you need to know about that for the time being. Just leave it on default, leave it on automatic, and it will, if a crash happens or something of a kind, it will be recorded, so you will be able to extract some valuable information from it. It does take up a bit of resources, but it's fine. It's not a lot. Anyway, begin installation. As the installation is going through, there are a few things. The system needs a random data. You can improve this by typing in randomly on the keyboard or moving the random data quality. Amazing. Anyway, user settings. Configure your root password, and look, for my user passwords for this particular machine that I am most likely going to delete after I finish this tutorial, you will, configure something that because you will use the root password on daily basis and on hourly basis if you're working. You're gonna type it in a lot of times during your working sessions. So choose something that is complex and that you can remember. I would suggest definitely more than 8 characters long. Something that does not contain words from the English dictionary or words from any dictionary for that matter at all. Make sure that it has numbers, letters, lowercase, uppercase, and that it has some symbols included definitely. And it should be greater than 8. For the purposes of this tutorial, because the security on this machine, in particular in terms of password strengths, is not that relevant primarily to me because this is a virtual machine, I can type in whatever I want. But I'm gonna go ahead and type in my password. I'm gonna make sure that it's a lengthy one, so let's see. Okay, so this is gonna be probably an overkill for a virtual machine, but oh well. Passwords you have provided this week fails the dictionary check. Okay, so let's just see what we can do here. I don't know. Let's see if this is gonna work. Ah, come on. You have to press done twice to confirm it. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna use whatever. We can change it later on if we want. I will show you how to change the root password, then later on we will actually configure a much better password for this, but I don't want to lose time now during the installation procedure. Now you can type in a full name here if you wish, and it will be displayed for you when you log in. I'm not going to type it in, but doesn't really matter. I'm just going to type in the username creator or random guy. Okay, a random guy. That's gonna be my username, but you can also type in your full name here, and what you can type in whatever you want for the username. I generally like to do a lot of partitioning in the post installation period and the configuration of the root password as well, and I can also change the encryption keys. During the installation, I generally pick the simplest possible things, and then later on we actually improve upon the security in the post installation process. Besides, I really wanted to save these things for an opportunity to later on show you when we actually start using the terminal how you can actually change all these things, because it is far more important for you, trust me, to be able to change them in the Linux terminal than anything else. Okay, so let's user random guy will be created. Excellent. So the installation is now running. I'm gonna leave it to run. I don't think I shall wait for the end of it during this tutorial. But if there are any changes or anything of a kind, rest assured I will take some screenshots and I will explain it in greater detail in the follow-up tutorial. However, for the time being, I'm just going to let the installation run, and once it is finished, I'm going to continue on from there, and we will see what we can actually do once the operating system is actually installed, to install VirtualBox guest editions, to get introduced to the GUI of the GUI graphical user interface of Red Hat, and then we're going to jump into the terminal as well to see how things actually work there. Until then, I bid you all farewell, and I wish you a lot of luck. Welcome back, everybody. Let's just continue on. So I have my virtual machine here. It's running. The installation process is complete. I didn't take any screenshots, nothing special there. Just let it finish till the end. That is all, nothing else. So go ahead and click on reboot. Capture, okay, until we install guest editions. So it's rebooting now. Just wait for it, shouldn't take that long. And after it reboots, we're going to be doing several things which you will need to do afterwards. The post installation procedure. Let's just you can let that run. You don't need to actually change it there to boot or anything like that. So please enter passphrase for disk. If you remember, we have encrypted them. and I have entered the decryption password. It is very important that you remember your encryption keys, as I've stated previously. Uh, if you are the sort of person that forgets them, write them down. If you don't feel like putting it, if you feel like that you're gonna forget it or something like that, better than not to put it, because you're gonna lock yourself out of your own disk, and that's gonna be pretty bad. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that if you decided to actually get the Red Hat subscription for $50, you will be able to enable certain repositories from which you will be able to pull the information from. Okay, so license is not accepted. We will fix that shortly. Let's just click on I accept license agreement. Done. Finish configuration and boot into your Red Hat machine for the first time. As I said, we're going to have access to certain repositories, but no big deal there. You should really know, like know how to do this, primarily because tomorrow when you're managing Red Hat systems, you will need to enable individual subscriptions for machines and what machine has access to what sort of packages from the Red Hat network. Anyway, here it says subscription registration. This assistant will guide you through the process of registering your system with Red Hat to receive software updates and other benefits. Okay, so you don't need to register now. It is not necessary, but let's just go ahead and say that we do want to register here, and then afterwards I will show you how can you register in the post installation period as well through the command via the command line. So let's just select yes, I'd like to register now, forward. I will register a subscription. Okay, so default, I will use no, we do not need proxies. Done. Let's see what happens now. Come on, come on. Yep, there we go. So is it gonna show my password? No, it will not. So login name, I believe it was Creator69. So original, right? And I even misspelled it. There we go. There we go with that as well. So just type in the username that you have created on the Red Hat website through the process of registration, and then use the same password, no problems. If you forgot it, of course, you can go to Red Hat and say forgot password or something of a kind, and it will reset it to your email or something. So please enter the following for the system name. Okay, we don't actually need to do that at the moment. We can just leave it at default. Done. So subscription management registering, you will only be able to do this if you actually bought the license itself for 1 year, where Red Hat provides updates, maintenance, and support. Well, not maintenance, sorry, provides updates and support, which is very nice. As I said, you can at all times just go over to the website and basically start a chat, and they will help you out with pretty much everything that you need. Okay, so Red Hat Enterprise, Linux Desktop, still support, type virtual, quantity 1, done. Go for it. Attaching subscriptions, this should finish up shortly. Oh, by the way, okay, so it's finished actually before I had the chance to show you, but it doesn't really matter. I have the command standing by. Here's what I want to show you basically. There are these two commands which you can use in order to register yourself from the command line on a system which has already been installed. So random guy shall now log in for the first time. No, don't do this to me. Yes, there we go. I almost thought I forgot my password, which would be quite embarrassing, but oh well, what can you really do about it? These things happen. I will later on probably show you how to actually recover your password from a loss as well, so that shouldn't be a problem. Excellent, so we have booted into Red Hat, and you can see it's a relatively simple desktop without that much configuration. So capture, yep, so I'm just gonna leave it here with English United Kingdom. You can change it to whatever you wish, of course. You can add additional keyboards here if you would like, but no, I don't need any additional keyboards. Okay, so you can also add some accounts here on the cloud, but generally not a bright idea if you're gonna to link your Facebook account or something like that. Just like here, if I say add account, let me just show you. You can say Google. Oh, no, don't do this to me. Add account. Okay, so I got Google, own cloud, Facebook, some other things. All in all, if you have business accounts that are directly related to this machine or here physically, well, not physically, but the accounts that you own that you use for business and for transactions and stuff of a kind, I would then definitely suggest that to actually link them with strong passwords. But I definitely would not suggest you linking, I don't know, a Facebook account for which you use basically for socializing or something of a kind, or anything that falls into that category of non-professional things. So don't do that. If you're gonna have a professional account, sure, but something for fun, no point. Just open up your browser and log in. Let's just go ahead and cancel that and press on next. Start using Red Hat Enterprise Linux client. Excellent. So now we're in Red Hat, and okay, it's gonna give us some getting started in the browser, but we don't actually need that at present because I know where things are. Feel free to read through that if you wish. The desktop is fairly simplistic. This is GNOME, if I'm not mistaken, and you can install different desktops here with more advanced graphical features, but we'll see what we can do later on to actually change how this thing looks like. But before we do anything, I want to have a full screen mode. I don't want to be messing around with this small image, and I'm sure you don't want to be looking at it either. So go into devices, insert guest editions CD image. Could not find VirtualBox guest edition disk image file. Do you wish to download this disk image file from the internet? Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Sure, you want to download VirtualBox from. Okay, so which site is it? DLC cdnsun.com VirtualBox. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and download it. Make sure to check these things. If they look fishy or something of a kind, then don't. Rather instead copy the address and check it out on the net. See if it's legit or something of a kind. If it's not, then absolutely do not. While this is going on, while the network operations manager is going on, let's just go into devices, network settings. Make sure to change this from NAT to bridge adapter, but I'm just going to leave it running for now while the download is going on because I don't want to actually interfere with it in any way. But change it from NAT to bridged, and then under name select an adapter as I have showed you in the previous tutorials. Make sure that you do that. Don't forget to do it, primarily because, well, it's better to have a machine with an individual LAN IP address that is separate and detached from the others, but that can yet communicate without any problems of whatsoever, as opposed to it going through NAT, which is not really good. Not something that I favor anyway. Not that it's not that good. It's good for protection and firewalls. Just to give you an example of what NAT is, it's network address translation. So let's say you have a router, your own home router that you use in your house that has been given to you by your ISP provider for which you paid money. And then you have a machine behind it, like a laptop, desktop, or a phone or whatever. It doesn't really, it's completely irrelevant. Then all the communication is done through that router, and that router is the device which actually has a public IP address. From there, all the requests are forwarded to the machines that actually made those requests. So if you're opening up a web browser, uh, not a web browser, sorry. If you're opening up a website, it's going to go through the router, and then the router is going to receive the information and forward them to the correct device within LAN. That is why we use Network Address Translation Protocol. But with the coming of the IPv6 addresses, that's going to become quite redundant. Anyway, let's just go ahead and see. Oh, this is still downloading. Okay, so it's 50% now. It is taking quite a while, but no worries there. I assure you it's gonna finish. While it is going on, let's just have a look at some of the other features that we have here. So, capture. Yep. So this is where your name is displayed, and you can play around with notifications. And this is also where you click when you want to turn your machine off in terms of GUI. Into settings and other things we will get into later, but for the time being, let's just go over some of the basic options that you have here. So we got settings, we got logout, we got lock, we got power off. By the way, for lock, you can use, in most of the cases, you can use Control Alt L, and it's a really good habit for laptops, especially if you leave them unattended. Not a good idea. Here you can just check out the date. You have the calendar. It's fairly simple to take a look at it. The calendar, like any other calendar, nothing much to say there. Over here, you go to the battery if you're in a laptop, and under under power settings, aside from choosing your plan, whether it's extensive use and high performance, or whether it's power saving mode, or something of a kind. Look, you have here blank screen, so it will blank the screen after 5 minutes. Don't do that. Well, these are my preferences. You can choose them to whatever you want them to be. Automatic suspend off, but when battery power is critical, hibernate. You can choose power off or hibernate. Surprisingly enough, it doesn't have that many options like I do on Fedora, but maybe. Okay, no, so apparently that's it. Not much there, but you know, when you're using Linux machines, the batteries tend to last forever. They're very energy efficient, so to say. I don't want to get into all of these things at the moment. We will get in the follow-up tutorial. I will actually explain about the GUI and, well, not the follow-up tutorial, but once we're through this mini chapter within a course, through these 3 ways in which you can actually set up your entire environment. Excellent. So the VirtualBox Guest Edition disk image file has been successfully downloaded. Do you wish to register the disk file image? Insert it into the Virtual CD insert. Thank you very much. Important software updates. Install them. Come on, capture. Okay, so VirtualBox Editions contains software intended to be automatically started. Would you like to run it? This is an equivalent of you putting a CD into your machine and running it. So just go ahead and run. It does require a password, so go ahead and type in your root password. Authenticate. Authenticating. Oh, come on. Excellent, so it's running this in the terminal, and it should finish up shortly, after which time I do believe that we're going to need to perform a reboot, but I'm kind of hoping that we won't, that it will catch it automatically. This process, it might take a while, but building the main guest module failed. Okay, let's see if this is going to present some major issues. I don't know, it can have some failures. It's still going to work the way I've experienced it anyway on my other virtual machines. Press return to close this window. Excellent. So, are you going to load it up now, or do we need to restart? Oh, we definitely need a restart. So, install updates and restart. Sure, why not? Here we go. Okay, I don't want to capture. Excellent, so let's just wait up until it boots and see what happens. Remember, we are looking for a full screen because I really don't feel like doing this on a small screen, and believe me, neither will you. So once again, we are prompted for a decryption password. And there you go, it's booting up again. The boot process is not that slow, it's relatively fast. There are some updates that have been applied as well, but we will need to perform additional checkups on this, and these systems need to be updated quite frequently too. Although, unlike Windows, it's not gonna force a restart on you, it's not gonna restart in the middle of things while you're doing something important. That will never happen with Linux, quite literally. And pretty much you do these sort of updates manually with the packet managers on regular basis, pretty much on daily basis. There are small updates, although the updates for Linux are generally never big as updates for Windows, so it's going to take you a very short amount of time to fill them up. And it doesn't take like a process of ages. When you reset the machine, you get that spinning circle. It says, please do not turn your computer off until the updates apply. Oh, that's a killer. It can be a bit annoying, but oh well, what can you really do about it? Not much if you want to machine. I have switched it to full screen mode. If I just go ahead and tick this, there we go. So it says view here. I can switch it to full screen if I wish to do so, so you don't see any of the differences, so you don't see the VirtualBox lines and toolbar. Anyway, so let me just go ahead and minimize it a little bit. The first time when you boot it up like this, when you log in, what I've noticed and what I've noticed with my previous virtual machines is that the VirtualBox guest editions don't load up immediately. So log in, wait maybe 15 seconds, a bit more, maybe 20, something like that, for them to load. Try resizing your screen like this. Pretty sure that that doesn't have that much effect, but something seems to be reloading in the background, and it does help out the way I've noticed it. Apparently here it has I have broken something. Have I indeed broken something? No, I haven't. It does work. Perhaps the screen just blanked out or something like that. Could not switch the monitor configuration. Okay, so this is not a big deal here. Anyway, as I said, just try resizing the screen, wait for about 20 seconds or so, and the VirtualBox guest editions will inevitably load, or should load anyway. Now, in this tutorial, what I wanted to do with you is show you how you can actually perform a dual boot of Windows 8.1 and Red Hat. Now, this is only valid for Windows 8.1 and Windows 8. You're not going to have such difficulties with Windows 7 or Vista or XP or anything of a kind. If you by any chance happen to have any of those operating systems, and if you wish to perform a dual boot, please do post it in the discussions. I will be more than happy to help you out and to give you detailed instructions on how to do that, as that is a lot simpler. But the procedure is pretty much the same. Anyway, so as I said, I will show you 3 ways how you can set up your environment. One I have already shown to you, how to use VirtualBox and how to install it. The second one will be how to perform a dual boot between Windows 8.1 and Red Hat. And the third one we will do way later on when I show you the virtualization process, the one that I talked about where you get 95% native performance with Xen. I do not want to get into that with you now, primarily because I wish to go over the graphical user interface of Linux, Red Hat, and I wish to introduce you to the Linux command line and a few other things before we actually get into that, because that is a bit complicated and there are a lot of new stuff there, so I'm just afraid that a lot of people won't be able to follow it through. So for the time being, let's stick to the basics, and we will later on move on to the more advanced stuff. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and minimize this machine. So this is my Windows 8.1 machine. Let me just go ahead and boot it up. And yep, there we go. So it is booting, no problems, hopefully. Yep, there we go. I thought I forgot a CD inside or something of a kind, but no, indeed, Windows 8.1 should boot up. I don't know, the boot process for Windows are fairly slow from what I've seen, but doesn't really matter. I'm gonna try assigning more resources to this machine because I'm gonna see. Oh, I didn't actually do this the proper way. See advanced, continue. You shouldn't actually see this, but anyway, I seem to have been messing around with the machine a little bit, so to say, and it's offering me to actually perform a repair, but I don't really need a repair. It's gonna boot up no problems now. Anyway, I am doing the demonstration in VirtualBox, of course, in a virtualized environment, but the procedure is exactly the same with the real machines. Although there is a downside to this. For this particular method, you will require 2 hard drives, and this is basically a foolproof method that will work on pretty much any device out there, as opposed to some other methods where you do it in a single drive and then encounter a ton load of problems, because I've seen so many people complain on so many forums out there how Windows 8.1 doesn't play well with other operating systems at all. So I've decided against showing you other methods, primarily because a lot of problems were experienced by a lot of people using those methods. So I just figured I would show you the foolproof one, the one that is safe, the one that leaves you with the lowest chance of messing anything up. Anyway, so this is my Windows 8.1 machine. It is up and running. So this would be an equivalent of your physical machine. And I'm just gonna go ahead and power it off for the time being because I don't really need it or want it at the time. I wish to install another one. As before, so just shut it down, and as before, you will of course need an ISO file of the operating system, which you will burn to a CD. Once you have burned it to a CD, just insert the CD into your machine and boot from it. Here's how you do it. So on a VirtualBox, I'll of course use virtual things in a virtualized environment. But basically, you see this, where the one that I've selected now, it says controller IDE, it says here empty. Now if I just select, where is it? There we go. If I just select it, it's an equivalent of you inserting a CD. When I selected this ISO file, it's an equivalent of you inserting a CD, an installation CD, into your machine and running the installation from there. Anyway, I'm just gonna click here OK, and your systems should be configured by default to boot from a CD, so you don't have to worry about that. If they are not, it's going to be written in the bottom right corner. Anyway, it's gonna be written there anyway. Like press F12 or Del or F2 or something of a kind to get the boot configuration or boot setup running. And once you actually press one of those buttons, it gives you an option like, would you like to boot from a CD? Would you like to boot from a hard drive, from a USB, or from network? Just use up and down arrow keys to select the one that you want and press enter. That is literally all you need to do. I, in the virtualized environment, actually needed to do what I just did. Now, there is another thing that I will do here that you do not need to do in the real world. You see, I have actually created a virtual hard drive, another one. So you do need 2 hard drives. See, one I have named Windows 8.1 VD.VD, and another one is Red Hat.VDI. Anyway, if you are doing this, and by any chance, if you're curious, or if you want to do this in the VirtualBox, you just press add a CD or DVD device, add a hard drive. There we go. And then you can say create a new disk or choose an existing disk. If you say create a new disk, it takes you through this process. You just basically click next, allot the size, change the name, and click create. That is literally all, and it will create it will create one just like this one if you named it so as well. Anyway, not that important at all for you because you'll be running this on a physical machine. This is a process for a physical machine. So dual booting Windows 8.1 and Red Hat on 2 hard drives. Anyway, just go ahead and power on the machine now that you have the CD has been previously inserted before the restart. And there we go. We're immediately prompted for an option to actually install Red Hat Enterprise. We can just go ahead and select it. That's the first option, not the default one though, because it first offers a testing of a media. You can run the test if you want as well, but I don't think that there is that much of a need. the burning software today is relatively good and performs a lot of checkups itself. And the installation process is en route. I'm not gonna go through it in great detail as I have shown it to you already before, but there is one segment which I do wish to show you and which I do wish to explain further, so to say. That would be the partitioning play. That would be the partitioning. There, it is okay to select an automatic partitioning scheme if you are using a single operating system or if you're just installing it onto an empty drive in a virtualized environment, something of a kind. It can be a quick workaround. But what you really want to do is be able to partition it yourself during the installation procedure as well. That can be very, very nice, primarily because you can do whatever you want with it. You can create a scheme that will suit your needs, that will benefit you, that you have deemed appropriate to yourself. Now we have one disk here. It says ATA VBox hard disk. This is where the Windows is located physically. You can see it says only 3,000 kilobytes of free space. Right next to it, I have a hard disk. It says almost 100. What? Oh, okay. This is I've already ran an installation on this, but you can see it says here SDA and SDB, and then you have the amount of space that is free on it. Anyway, they're both 100 gigs. I'm sure that on your machine they won't be exactly 100 gigs each one of them. Make sure to first figure out which disk you want to use. So if your Windows is installed on one disk, don't install it there, install it on another disk. I'm not talking about partitions here, I'm talking about two separate hard drives that are within your machine. So just go ahead and select the one that you have chosen. It's not empty, there's something on it, I don't know, some things that I have previously installed, but doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go ahead and select it. Please be very careful also when doing this, because if you format the drive, you're going to lose information, that you're going to lose data. You're not going to be able to recover it to the fullest of extents. Some of it you will be able to retrieve, but this is not Windows partitioning or something like that. Once you delete things with Linux, it's rather difficult to restore them. Even when I delete something in my terminal with an RM command, it's gone. You just learn to live with it. Anyway, so as I said once again, I can't emphasize this enough. Please select the proper hard disk. If you have problems selecting the proper hard drive, feel free to post it in the discussions. I will be more than happy to help you out with it, but please do not just randomly click on stuff and lose your data. Anyway, to select the drive, all you need to do is click on it, and this mark appears. You see this one, it appears now, and then when I click on it, it disappears. Excellent. So I have selected the second drive, and I want to select I will configure partitioning, that option. Excellent. So now we click on done, and we're going to be thrown here where we're given an opportunity to actually set it up ourselves. So I already have this, and I have already installed Red Hat here previously, so let's just go ahead and delete it all. Since I'm not interested in that now, I wish to do it from scratch so that you can actually see how it is done. So we can have standard partitions, we can have Linux Volume Manager, and some other things as well, but I'm just going to go ahead and select standard partitioning for this. I could actually even select an LVM, and the first partition that we need to configure is root. Your system files will be located there. So I need to desired capacity, let's say 20 gigs, so 20 GB. Add mount point. Excellent, it is created now. I can encrypt it if I wish. Yeah, you can create volume groups as well, because Linux generally, if you have a bunch of disks running under Linux, it just sees them, it can actually see them as a single hard drive. So it treats, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 disks as a single hard drive, no problems. You get that with the default installations of Linux, which is very nice. And if you go back to the root directory in Linux, you will always go back to root, while going back to the root directory on Windows usually means going selecting a disk where it is installed, like C or something like that, and then going there. If this is unclear to you now, I don't want you to worry about it at all. As we move in deeper and deeper, when I give you clear examples of this, you will understand it far better. Anyway, we have created the root partition, and now we need to create a, well, we need to create a boot partition for our Red Hat. So add mount, oh, no, wait. Okay, so it gave it the automatic size of 81 gigabytes because I haven't assigned any size to it, which is a bit funny. So let's just go ahead and delete that, and let's create it again. So boot, let's say, I don't know, you can probably get away with 100 megs, but I'm just gonna say 500 megs to be certain, because I don't know, I guess I'm a cautious guy and I have a lot of space here. Literally, I can have like more space than I will probably ever need on this laptop. Anyway, so boot, root, and now we need home. So home is not, I mean, I don't think you shouldn't get any errors, but you should definitely create a home partition. So 80, and yeah, sure, why not? 80 GB. Pretty sure it's not gonna need a space there. Excellent. Also, you will notice that it doesn't actually obey me to the fullest of extents. It creates a, I've told it 80, and it has created 74.51. Anyway, that's just how it works. I have a bit of available space left here, and I figured, why not? Let's create a swap partition. So swap, actually, you don't need to create it. I think I mentioned this, but it's not a bad idea to have it. You're not gonna get an error message, but you're gonna get a warning message, let's put it so. Anyway, I didn't put in any size parameters, so it just took pretty much all that it could take. There's like 1 megabyte that's gonna be left there. I suppose you can try tweaking and being extremely precise and trying to extract this 1 megabyte, but honestly, why bother? Anyway, you can put in a label here, you can name it any way you like as well. No problems there. Swap will only act as a, usually you put it twice the size of RAM, but I mean on modern systems you don't really need it, primarily because you're not going to run out of RAM generally, but you might, and then your system actually starts using your portion of your hard drive as it would use RAM. It's a really slow procedure. The method is terrible, but hey, it saves the day when all is taken into consideration. Anyway, I'm just gonna click here. I got home, boot, root, swap. I'm gonna say done. And here I get a summary of changes. I get a type and what's gonna be destroyed, what's gonna be created. Just have a look at this and make sure none of these disks are reserved for your Windows. So you can see by SDB, if any of them was SDA, cancel this immediately, but no, they're all SDB. Excellent. So it's the second physical hard drive. They're usually SDB, SDA, I think the next one should be SDC, and so on and so forth, depending on how many you have. So here it says what's going to be created, what's going to be destroyed, what's going to be formatted, etc. So let's just go ahead and click on accept changes. And there you go, custom partitioning selected, all is ready, and the installation may actually begin. So you just click on begin installation. I didn't connect it to the network, but doesn't really matter. We can do all the updates and all the things as planned. So here's the machine, and now I'm just gonna click on reboot. This is gonna take a bit of time. I will later on to the machine that we're going to be using as our main operating system, as our Red Hat virtualized environment, I will assign far more resources there. I'll even assign more CPU cores and more RAM so that it works faster. But for the time being, let's just see how this works in a bit of a slower mode. So you might have noticed that even though I've clicked reboot at the end of the Red Hat installation, I am booting now into Windows 8.1. And you might think this to be an error or something of a kind, but I assure you it is not. Everything is working as it should be working. Just type in test. Or wait for it. Okay, now Windows is notorious for only seeing the partition of NTFS and exFAT, but let's just give it a shot anyway to see if we can actually see the Red Hat partitions there. So type in disk management. Thank you very much. And then I'll restart the computer and show you that you can indeed boot into Red Hat without any bigger problems, but you need to click a button in time. Okay, so it does see VirtualBox Edition. Okay, so CD disk 1. Okay, yep, there we go. So disk 0 and disk 1, they are the same size, and it just recognizes these partitions as healthy primary partitions, nothing more. It even sees only 2, which is kind of weird, but okay. Anyway, don't pay that much attention to disk 0, primarily because I've done so many wrong things to it. Up to this point of time, I'm actually even surprised that it's working properly. What I want to show you here is the disk 0 and how is it working. Anyway, if you need to free up some space here in the disk management, while I'm here, I might as well show you. You can actually shrink these volumes. You shouldn't mess around with these that are not Windows partitions. You should only mess around with Windows partitions in Windows. In Linux, you can mess around with pretty much anything. But let's just right click on it, and there's a delete volume, shrink volume. Okay, so you can right click and shrink it. Squaring volume for available shrink space. Anytime now, my good man, anytime. I don't know, I've already shrank it, so to say, something here, and I've partitioned it. And here, excellent. So here it says shrink volume C, size available to shrink in megabytes is actually 0 because it can't get any smaller. And the amount of space to shrink in megabytes you would just put in here. Once that is done, you just read the total size in megabytes after shrink and click shrink. There you go. You can only shrink them from left to right. You cannot shrink them from right to left. So one thing to keep in mind. Anyway, while I was here, I figured I might as well show you that, although not particularly relevant for the course, but a bit of extra information is always in handy. Anyway, I just want to show you that these two partitions are in fact in existence. They are very much there, but Windows doesn't have a clue as to what they actually are. So just go ahead and close this. As you would do with your normal machine, with your physical machine, let's just restart. And now in the restart process, once the Windows goes down, we will switch to Red Hat. So press F12 to select the boot device. You will have something similar on your machine. I don't know, it depends from which machine. I have a Dell, so for Dell it's F12. There are some other machines like it's F2, somewhere it's actually the delete button. It will be written on the screen as soon as you turn the machine on, that first black screen, so don't worry about it, just have a look at it, and it's gonna say like this is for BIOS, this is for boot options. Select the one, press the key for boot options, and you will get something similar to this. So either you will choose with an up and down arrow and then press enter, or you will have numbers and letters like I have here. So I'm just gonna say boot from hard disk 2. And there you go. I have Red Hat here standing by. I also have Ubuntu down here, but disregard that, please. Been messing around with Windows and been trying to dual boot it in a single partition. Have encountered a lot of problems and didn't want to burden you with it. That's why it actually sees the Ubuntu here. But in any case, disregard that. You will not see that upon when you install it. Rather, instead, you will only see these two options that I am switching in between. Now, select the first one, press enter, and very shortly, Red Hat will actually boot. So you will have dual boot set up, working, no problems. As far as I could find on the forums and in consultation with a lot of people on the net who know a great deal about this, and after reviewing a lot of forum posts, as I've said before, I've actually opted for this method to physically separate Windows and Linux disks, and then you just select the boot options at machine startup. Safest way to go about things without actually messing up anything. So anyway, accept the license agreement, done, finish configuration, and it's gonna boot any moment now. Come on. No, I would like to register at a later time because I don't want to register twice. I've already registered on a different machine. So it's booting into. This is the first boot, so keep that in mind. Excellent, there we go. Let's just log in. I'm not going to bother installing VirtualBox guest editions here, primarily because there's no need to do so, as we're not actually going to be using this machine. This is only a demonstration of the procedure itself. Oh, come on, anytime now. Just want to show it to you as proof. There you go. So it did indeed boot. You now have the working environment, the graphical user interface here, and it works no problems. Then if you want to switch back to Windows, just reboot the machine, press the key on your keyboard that is appropriate to your computer brand, and select the hard drive from which you wish to boot. So one hard drive will be for Windows and another one will be for Red Hat. Very simple procedure, not too complex, and the only thing that you could possibly mess around with, the only possible thing that you could do that would cause you damage is to actually select the wrong drive during the partitioning tutorial. Today I'm just gonna go ahead and enter Red Hat. We're not gonna do any more installations or anything of a kind. Today we're jumping in, but we're easing it in slowly. First, I'm gonna show you the graphical user interface, and then we will move on to the terminal. I first want to show you where is what approximately. Before I do all of that, I have made some alterations to the Red Hat virtual machine. I have just assigned it more resources, and you can do the same by clicking on the settings and then going to system, and you have the motherboard, processor, acceleration. And these things you can only change while the machine is down. So once you power the machine up, these changes can no longer take effect. You see, I cannot do anything here. I need to turn the machine off, then make these changes. But in any case, you can see that I've assigned it almost 3 gigs of RAM, and I have assigned it an extra CPU core. Hopefully, it's going to run a bit faster, and this is going to be a lot smoother experience. You can do the same if you wish, but it's not required. I'm simply doing this to save on time. It is not a pre-requirement of what we are about to do. Anyway, just go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel that, minimize this, and have a look at this desktop. If some of you have used Mac, it's fairly similar to it. On the upper bar, you have Sound, Network Manager, Power Management, Date, Username, or you can put in your real name there if you wish. And on the left side over here, you have Applications and Places. So let's click on Places. Okay, capture it. Click on Places. So it can take you home, documents, downloads, music, pictures, videos, pretty much similar as in Windows. You can even browse the network if you want, but doesn't really, we're not going to do that for now. Anyway, once you go into applications, for all of you Windows users out there, this is basically like the start menu. You just click on it, and then you have pretty much everything that you want here. You have the Firefox, we have the browser, which is the default one is Firefox, of course. And we're gonna see, don't open it, my good man. never mind. Let's just, while it's opening it up for the first time, it's probably going to want to do some updates or something of a kind. Speaking of which, we need to do them as well. But first, let me just introduce you. So you have the Firefox browser here. You have the mail client. Basically, this is for music. For photos, you have LibreOffice, which is the equivalent of Microsoft Office. You can pretty much do anything in LibreOffice that you can do in Microsoft Office as well. So no problems there. And under files, if you're wondering what this is actually a file manager. So let's just go ahead and click on it to see what comes up. Excellent. So this is our file manager, and let's just kill this red gigantic thing in the background. Close them. Most of our time we will be spending at the command line, and we will be mostly dealing with the terminal. But it's good to know, it's good to have a look at these things, and it's good to actually be at least acquainted with the graphical user interface, if nothing else, as it is a prerequisite for using it as a desktop machine, but not a prerequisite as using for servers or anything of a kind, which we eventually want to be able to manage, control, install, and so on and so forth. Anyway, this is your file browser, and you can pretty much go anywhere from here. If I go down to computer, it's going to take me to where some of the system files are. I cannot access where the system files are. I cannot access some of them. You see there's an X here on root. If I double click on it, it says the location could not be displayed. You do not have the necessary permissions to view the contents of root. This is going to be a similar case in all, pretty much the same case actually, in all Linux distributions. You will not be able to access certain parts of it or see it unless you have a root password, or unless you are using a terminal to actually view it, which is very nice, primarily because it disables 99% of viruses out there, pretty much because they cannot do anything on your system without proper permissions. So anyway, you have the temporary files, I don't know, you have the root files, and here under var you have the log files somewhere. Just have a look at them. I'm generally not used to doing this via graphical user interface, but let's just have a look at it. So log, excellent. So you have these log files that you can later on read. Don't worry about it. We will go through them. We will read them. I will explain to you this in far greater detail. For now, I'm just introducing you to the graphical user interface, nothing else. So just go ahead and close this and go back to applications, and now you have categories of applications. So you have favorites, and these really are pretty much the most used applications in pretty much any Linux distro. Terminal and Firefox and browser, they are the first two, and then comes the rest. So under accessories, I don't know, you have some stupid things that you would use for your daily affairs. Oh, by the way, the equivalent of Notepad in Linux, I would definitely say that it's gedit, except it has like a ton load of more capabilities and options. There we go, definitely, but we're not we can use it a little bit later on, but we'll mainly be using text editors in the terminal. So you can just go ahead and close that. If we go further down below, okay, so documentation, graphics, nothing there. Oh, come on, internet. Okay, so nothing there. Excellent. Under Office. So here you have like LibreOffice Writer, which is Word, or LibreOffice Impress. I think that's the one for presentations in the Office package. I'm pretty sure that you know to which I am referring to. A PowerPoint. Tip of my tongue, but couldn't really remember. So LibreOffice Impress is basically PowerPoint, if I'm not mistaken. LibreOffice Draw, I think it's an equivalent of Paint or something of a kind, and LibreOffice Calc, which is basically Excel. If we go down further below, we got sound, video. Okay, so Cheese is for your webcam. Just so you know, you can utilize your webcam with Cheese. Baresso is for burning CDs, but we can do all of these. You can burn CDs through via the terminal as well without any sort of problems. If we go down below, Sundry. Okay, so we got SE Linux Troubleshooter. Print settings, not that important. Firewall, excellent. So you have the graphical user interface for the firewall, and if we go ahead and click on it, we're going to be prompted with a root password. That's gonna, oops, actually no, are you serious? And if I select this, I know, okay, there will be a root password. That'd be hilarious if there wasn't anything here. I would see if it didn't prompt me for a root password, then I could do pretty much whatever I wanted to the firewall. I would I would completely disavow Red Hat completely and utterly. Anyway, here you can, but fortunately it does require the password. Here you can pretty much do anything with the firewall, and firewall in Linux is open source. Its capabilities are practically infinite. You can do whatever you want with it. There is pretty much nothing that you would need that you cannot do with a Linux firewall. It's amazing. I don't know, I'm sure you can find something and make me eat my own words, but you get the general idea. So you can decide what services do you want to allow, what ports, you got port forwarding, ICMP filter, this is for pinging, and so on and so forth. But look, all of this we will do later via the terminal, as that is the proper way of doing this, because on a server you don't have a graphical user interface and you have to do with what you have. Primarily because graphical user interfaces are resource expensive, and they waste RAM, they waste CPU, and you don't want them. Plus, all the power rests in the terminal, the almighty terminal. Anyway, so go back to applications. Sundry, we were here. SC Linux is your, how shall I put this? Is your, let's say, antivirus system, or a way of tightening down security eternally. We will deal with that later on, as it will it will play a major role in this course. If you go down to system tools, welcome back everybody. Let's just continue. So in the application section, go down to system tools, and here you have like a lot of interesting things. So for example, you have a system monitor, which is a very nice utility, and we'll show you an equivalent of it in the terminal, which people do tend to use quite often. So you have file systems. You can take a look at them. They are listed here. Pretty much. Come on. Yep, there we go. So run media, random guy, VBox, guest editions. That is the mount point of my guest editions. So that one is used 100%, which is which is the way it's supposed to be. But you can also see pretty much everything else. Let's go into processes. Here you can take a look at all the processes that are currently running on your system. If there was anything, well, after a while, I know it seems when you look at it like this kind of complicated and you don't know what is what, and you wouldn't be able to tell apart a malicious thing from a benevolent thing. Over the course of time, over when you start using it, when you learn about it, when you use it on a daily basis or something of a kind, and you pass the Red Hat certification for a system administrator, eventually you just need to take a look at this once and you pretty much know what each one of these things does, or in 99% of the, or in those 1% of the cases out of 99%, you have a vague idea of what that process is, and then you can figure it out from there. But believe me, people can just glimpse at this and pretty much know what each one of these does relatively fast with relative ease. Anyway, in addition to that, you got the user that's running those processes, a random guy. That is me. That is my username that I have created. Yours is probably different. I hope to God that you didn't copy mine. I strongly urge you to type in whatever you wish. And in addition to that, we have the amount of resources that our current processes are consuming. So you can see most of them are pretty much idle. But this one, the GNOME shell, is consuming 32% of the CPU, has this ID which can be used to actually kill the process, and then we have 573, what is this, megabytes, I think. Hold on, let me just expand it. Yep, it's 573 megabytes of RAM, which is a fairly expensive process in comparison to pretty much everything else that is running here. However, there are better tools which we will use in the terminal, and that will give you better overview of the entire situation, but know that this exists. Okay, so let's just close it, go back to our place, system tools, and there we go. So it says Red Hat Subscription Manager. You can configure your subscriptions here if you want other sort of registrations. What I really want to do is go ahead and click on software. And here you can actually search for different sort of packages, so backup client, let's see, just select it. And this is basically a graphical user interface for the installation of various packages, of various software programs, etc. So you can pretty much find whatever is in the repositories here. However, people don't tend to use this one as it is a GUI. But again, another one of those things that you should know that it exists. And all those, for example, on Windows, on Android, and on Mac, you know how they say, oh, it's amazing, you have this store, and you go there and you can download software immediately from there. Well, let me just tell you, Linux had that from the very beginning. Like from the very beginning. Well, maybe not the first Linux that ever came out, but it's pretty close. I'm sure of it. Pretty much people have just been pulling software from the official repositories for as long as I know. So long before Windows, long before Apple, Mac OS X, and definitely long before Android, Linux had repositories from which people always kept on pulling software to install onto their machines, as it is a fairly secure way of doing that, as all that software that is there is checked by the repository maintainers. Anyway, it's a very nice thing to have, but we're going to use a terminal one, which is fairly simple to use. It's called Yum, and I will show you fairly well how to use it. You will become proficient with it, so you don't have to worry about it. Another thing here is the system log. Now, even though most people tend to do these things in the terminal, the system log here, the tool, it gives you a rather nice overview of the things. So if you just type, you do require a root password in order to review the logs, as is to be expected. So you have of various processes here, of various things that have happened. You have their logs and you can see what is going on. This is especially important for troubleshooting. I would even argue that this is better than the terminal, as it gives a bit of a better overview of the existing logs, and then you can just scroll through them and see what is going on. Generally, people take a look at messages and what was going on in general with the system itself. You just scroll up and down and take a look at these lines. They don't mean much to you now, but they will. They will in time. Just show a bit of patience. You can't know everything from, if in like 5 minutes you cannot learn everything. That's for sure. Just a little bit of patience and you will eventually become proficient. Okay, so yeah, this is another thing that I'm going to show you fairly soon, but for the time being, let's just stick to what we have. System tools again. So you have startup applications. Here you can configure cron jobs, if I'm not mistaken. Well, you can configure cron jobs via the terminal, but here you can also use a graphical user interface to just say, okay, I want this application to run at startup, and I want this one, and I want this one, or I don't want that one, I don't want this one. So here you can actually create your own scripts and link them here. Just name it whatever you want, then you browse it in the file system, you find it, just double click on it, the command will be here, and then you can even comment it if you want. That script will run at startup. This is a very common thing for system administrators to have plenty of scripts that will run at startups. They usually carry a USB stick with them with like 10,000 scripts on it. Every particular script has its own thing. Usually those are troubleshooting tools that people make for themselves. I don't know, to filter certain traffic out, or to boot certain services, to kill certain services, to start certain services, sorry, not boot, and to display certain files, or to display certain logs, and to see the status of certain things. Anyway, that's pretty much it as far as this part is concerned. Perhaps one more thing is Red Hat Access and Boxes is actually for accessing other machines, so we won't need that at the time being, but it can be nice. You can use Red Hat Access to connect to their network directly from your operating system, and have a look if you can see if you can find anything useful there. But we shall deal more with these things a bit later on here. I'm just giving you a bit of intro. Down at the utilities, there are some fairly nice things. So Archive Manager can unpack pretty much anything. You know how in Windows you have to actually you have to download an unzip software. 7-zip is free, but you have RAR or you have WinRAR or something of a kind that you have to pay for. Here in Linux, you can pretty much unpack anything for free, no problems. Got a lot of things here. Well, dictionary is not particularly useful to us at the moment. You get a disk usage analyzer, not bad. Font document. Okay, so remote desktop viewer is very nice. It comes free. You can utilize it, no problems, to access computers remotely and provide technical support. That can be very nice. You don't need to install anything extra there. Up here, you got disks. So let's just open up our disks. And there we go. We got pretty much everything listed here. So it's 137 gigabytes hard disk. This is probably the Windows one, if I'm not mistaken. No, sorry. This is XFS Linux bootable. Down below, we got some other Red Hat 2.7 gigabyte block partition. I don't exactly know what this is, but okay, so 80 block device. This should be home. Yep, there we go. So Red Hat home. Let's just see what this is. Oh, this is swap. There we go. So we can read it here. It's swap, and up here it's root. So you can figure out how you can review your partitioning scheme here without bigger problems by just clicking. It's fairly simple to read through it without any bigger difficulties. You can also create a disk image, restore a disk image, you can benchmark it. It provides a wide variety of options for you to play around with. I'll just go back to utilities to see if I've actually missed anything. Nope, that would be it. Okay, so there is one more thing that I want to show. Utilities. Sorry, action overview. Excellent. So if you go to action overview, you're going to be prompted with this, and on the right side you have your virtual desktop, so you can have multiple things on multiple desktops. That can be very nice, primarily because it's a space saver, so you can just switch between them. We'll probably do that later on as we progress. Here at the top center, you have a search box, so you can type in the approximate name of any application. So there we go. So terminal. Okay, so let's try something else. Baresso. No, I have a feeling I misspelled it. Baresso. There we go. Bracero. Sorry, Bracero. That's how it's read. I misread it because I don't use Bracero. I use the KDE one. But doesn't really matter. I want to show you something new and something a bit different. Anyway, you can do this in the terminal as I have said, but this is how you would search for things in your GUI interface, so you could actually find them. You don't need to know the file system by heart. You can just use the search functionality here and figure out where is what and how to find things. This is your sidebar on the left side. You see you have Firefox here and some other things. This can be changed by a simple drag and drop. Fairly simple. You can even show the applications like this, frequent or all, and now you can just scroll down. So this has been implemented for a while now. I mean, if you have a touch screen or something like that, I bet this could work really well. But anyway, down here at the bottom is our #1 program, the holy grail of power, the terminal. So let's just go ahead and open it. With this, I shall conclude today's lecture. In the next lecture, we will start using the terminal. I hope that you have familiarized yourself with this desktop layout, at least to an extent, to see where